And not just for my family, for the Black community, for women. It was going to be very important for folks to not just know it was me, but
Yeah.
to know people who look like me, that when you have something that's out there, let the world know
I like
and let the history know, right? Our history is trying to be changed and erased in a lot of different ways. And I was like, no, this is important. I need to put in the work, and people need to know who created this, and it needs, because it'll hopefully outlive me long, long after I'm gone.
Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This person has created the world's first eyeglass cleaning cloth with a unique design to effectively and quickly clean your lenses. Please help me welcome the founder of Clean Peepers, Dori Young. How is it going?
It is going amazing. It has just been, I'm blessed. I am blessed. And thank you so much, David, for having me on. I am super excited, as you can tell by my ear to ear grin.
No, for sure. I know we were talking a little bit offline about the weather here, so I'm not going to hold that against you. Kind of being out on the West Coast and kind of enjoying all the sunshine that it has to offer out there. But I'm excited to kind of get off into your journey and kind of your product. And I guess for the audience, I always like to start with maybe a description of the cleaning cloth, just so that whether they are watching it on audio or video, they have maybe a understanding or a kind of description of what it is that you've invented.
What I've invented is basically an eyewear cleaning cloth that fits on your hand. And so, if you want me to show it, I can absolutely do that. Um, you know, Sometimes, you have a trouble. This is what it looks like.
Nice.
It fits just on your hand like this, and allows you to clean your glasses more effectively. And I'll talk to you a little bit. There's actually another one that gets into cleansing, and we'll get off into that a little bit. But it was born out of just frustration and trying to have a product that is better utilized to get your glasses clean, because it's so important. And so I just kind of, out of my own frustration, went to work and was able to create something that solves my problem and hopefully solves a lot of other folks' problems at the same time.
Nice, nice, nice. And then I know seems like you have a few different products, and this is maybe more interesting about kind of your product. What made you decide to say, okay, I'm gonna do a line as opposed to maybe just kind of one product? But you kind of provided a number of different things. I think you also have maybe some solution that you can kind of spray on the glasses and or the lenses and kind of wipe it off. So what made you? Why was it so important for you to say, okay, I'm gonna come out with the line of products here at the beginning as opposed to kind of one product here and there?
Well, it just kind of steamroll. As you know, sometimes when you start creating and that creative juices start to flow, you start thinking, oh, maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. And you start thinking of all the different ways, things like maybe you were frustrated with, or gaps in a product design that you've always thought, it'd be nice to have that. And then just wanting a good experience, an end to end experience from cleaning your glasses. The mister, it's like a twist up. So it allows for like easy handling, and also to kind of make it so that you can have something that's fun to use and functional. So kind of just started to take on a life of its own. And I'm like, I could do this, I could do that. And then just putting my pen to paper and kind of getting my hands working. And next thing you know, we've got a line of products with everything you need to cleanse your glasses, clean your glasses, store them, keep them protected, and take them with you.
Oh yeah, and that's no that's pretty cool. What made you? I know you talked a little bit about the inspiration of. I'm assuming kind of you kind of dealing with the issues of maybe trying to clean your specs. And I mean for me, I don't necessarily have wear glasses outside of maybe like sunglasses, and I kind of use old maybe use your shirt to clean the
For sure.
lenses,
I know.
which most people use. But it seems like maybe it's like another. I don't know. I mean, I have some Ray Bans, and typically they come with like some type of regular cloth. Uh,
Yes.
Now, just kind of help differentiate your product from maybe what's out there, whether it's using your shirt, whether it's using a paper towel, or maybe a
Yeah.
cloth that I guess the lens manufacturer or the glass manufacturer provides you. Why weren't those prior solutions helpful as it relates to cleaning the lens?
So when you think about, a lot of people reach for the shirt, right? Or the napkin. And it usually is just because you got something on there you got to get off. However, those things can actually damage your glasses. So clothing, even though it may feel soft and we all love cotton, that actually can damage your glasses. So can any paper towel. And glasses are not cheap. Sunglasses are not cheap. And they usually have coatings on them, protective coatings on them. And over time, those things can scratch your glasses. Now, the square claws that come with your glasses are effective. However, they're not effective forever. And my question is, if you've used one, how do you know you're using the clean side?
Good point.
You don't. So with my product, you cannot use the wrong side. You're only going to put the contact with the lens, the side that you're actually using on your lens. And the colors are light by design, so you can see when it's dirty. The other thing is it doesn't take much to put back onto your glasses what you're trying to take off or that you know in the first place. So making sure that you have a product that can really clean your glasses, you can see when it's dirty. Also, cleansing is important. This little guy actually is for use with soap and water to actually cleanse your glasses. I have oily skin and I wear makeup. And so it's not just enough to spritz it and wipe it down. I actually need to take something like a, dish soap that doesn't have a softener. This gets into all the areas, gets that dirt and oil off. And it's amazing. People are finding that, oh, they didn't know. Number one, their glasses get to get that clean.
Right.
Number one, they're like, wait, now I see scratches I didn't see before because it was so dirty. Um,
Wow.
but to answer your earlier question, how I got this. So your microphone is very familiar to me because another thing that I do is audiobook narration. And it was in a session of recording that I came up with the idea out of just frustration. I wear progressives. And so you don't have to wear glasses yet, but one day. One day. And so I have the top half is for distance and the bottom there's a line for reading. If
Mhm.
there's a smudge right on the line, I might as well have my eyes closed
Really?
because that line is where I need to that's where I can read. So I was recording and I had a smudge and I was just so frustrated because I'm trying to maintain a certain tone and tempo and emotion and that was very disruptive. So I used my closet, my bedroom closet as a recording booth. I had this new pair of socks sitting on top. Out of frustration, I stuck my hand in and did this and that's when the light bulb went off.
Hey, that's the thing. Talking about a story of how things came about. That's a pretty interesting story. And I love doing these interviews because I get a chance to learn something new. I guess I didn't realize that you're saying that typically when you get a cloth, that it's a side that's for cleaning and it's a side that's maybe not for cleaning.
Well, it's not designed that way because typically you're just going to use what, but then once you put it down and you put it away and you go to use it again, how do
Yep.
you know which side that you
Gotcha.
use? You don't.
Yep.
You don't. And and then how often are you washing it?
No, and I look, maybe I'm definitely, I don't wanna call it a novice or, maybe, just don't know because I mean, I don't wear glasses, so the issue doesn't come up for me often, but I yeah, it never came up to me like, "Hey, man, you have to kinda wash this cloth," which I guess as you're talking it out, that makes sense, but, yeah,
Yeah.
after so many uses, you don't think of, "Okay, I need to wash this thing," or maybe get a new one or whatever the
Yep.
case may be, which is interesting.
Yeah, you just don't think about it, and then they contribute. Oftentimes, too, they're not protected. Like, so, I provide little like pouches that you can put in your pocket, or what's even nice, something cute, right? A little mini backpack that you can, clip on. That's what I clip on, and then also where you can store it. I actually keep something like this on my desk, and I sit them right inside my desk so I can access it. But this is also serves as a way of drying the cloths when they're wet, but having a place to keep them protected so they're not getting dirtier when they're not in use because there's dirt, there's oil, but there's also particulates. Like the particulates are the things that are going to scratch your glasses, and that's probably what your cloth is going to be picking up while you're just leaving it on a desk or leaving it somewhere else and you go to use it and you might be actually damaging your glasses.
Right. Huh. No, that's I mean, that's a great point, and, yeah, it's something that you typically don't think of until, you can't see out of your glasses, and that becomes frustrating. I guess, and again, we'll talk about the IP portion of it here a little later, but have you thought, uh, as you're kinda going through the process, I think it's patent pending still, have kinda thought to yourself as you're going through the process, like, "Man, I can't believe that this hasn't ever been done before," in terms of somebody coming up with, a product such as what you have to actually clean eyeglasses outside of maybe kind of the norm what's provided? Have you kind of thought, I mean, eyeglasses been around for ever centuries,
Yeah.
I would imagine and to think that no one has ever kind of came up with this or your invention, that has to be something that you think like, wow, that's crazy that no one has ever came up with this.
I was shocked when I started doing the research and I was like, really? Like no one, but when you think about it, there are some products that we've used in, a society that we just haven't changed. We just haven't changed. And so, but and that actually, I was really surprised by that. There's some products that have tried to take a different approach. They've tried a different approach of trying to get the glasses clean, and they've tried different fabrics to try to get the glasses clean. But to me, it just made sense. Also, when I was as you get older, your dexterity changes. I mean, I know I look like I'm 26, but I'm not. That's the age of my child, my young man. But sometimes, one day I got so frustrated. I was trying to clean with the cloth and I dropped it and ended up putting a big old CSI print on my hand, on my
Oh,
glasses, because I had a hard time holding it. So that was the other thing, to make sure that you can actually, use it and maneuver and use the pressure of your fingers without dropping the cloth. But to answer your question, I was absolutely shocked when I was looking out there. I was like, really? Nobody's thought of this? And excited.
no, hey, that's one of those things where you like almost like a thank you God moment. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
maybe unbelievable to at first, but then you like you said, you get excited because you're like, okay, we have something here, and obviously eyeglasses have been around forever. They'll continue to be around forever. A ton of people, millions of people around the world use them. So I guess the need for your product is definitely a market for the product. I was kind of doing some research on in preparing for this interview, and you had 20 plus years. You have 20 plus years in project manager as a project manager in that area. And it's always interesting to me because typically it seems like when somebody's invented something, it kind of falls in a few different buckets. Number one, they're solving a problem for themselves, or they are kind of maybe using experience for that they have accumulated over the years through their job, and they have kind of used that to maybe solve for an issue. And it seems like in your case, you've kind of a problem that you was going through. Seems like maybe on a daily basis, and kind of thought about a solution for it, and then invented something. Uh, was that kind of scary or nerve wracking that it was kind of something completely different from what you had experienced in it at that point in time, that being project management? Because going through the whole manufacturing and design and maybe marketing and all that has to be, I guess I would imagine it can be overwhelming to someone who maybe that's not what they have been doing up until this point in time. So I guess how did you kind of go about that process, seeing as though it was maybe different from project management, or did project management help out when it was time to kind of go through the different steps of coming out with the product?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly the latter part of what you said. So, but yes, very scary because number one, I don't, I can't say this anymore, but if you asked me, 6 months ago, the two things I don't do, I would say run and sew. Um, and so my late mother was a crafter, and my father was a black man he pioneered in business at a time where it was hard for us. So I channel both of them and continue to channel both of them. But when it comes to project and program management, that allows me to execute, because what we have to do, in the end of the day, we can't be flapping our guns. We have to deliver. So I've been able to leverage that. But it was overwhelming to think about. And it's not the first, venture I've done. Most entrepreneurs, the one that sticks is the end of a long list of things that they've tried. And I'm no different in that way. So what's unique about now is that our time is very interesting, because technology has allowed things to be easier and faster in terms of access and certain things, even AI, being able to leverage these things now is a really good time to actually, I'm a Marvel fan too. So I kind of think like back in the day, I was limited of technology of my time, to quote Tony Stark, senior. But now things are so much easier, and there's more things available. So while it was overwhelming, it was also, when you found something, right? Because your spirit tells you, you just know, and everything starts lining up even before you even attempt to. So I also knew, this was a divinely inspired idea. So I knew everything was going to be just fine. I just had to do the work.
Nice, nice, nice. No, and I like that in terms of you having used your prior experience to kind of help you through some of the process, and then, like you said, knowing that at the end of the day, I still have to put in the work. And
Yeah.
so we all know with kind of coming out with a product and having a business and all those things, IP plays a big part of that. Was that something that you knew already from maybe your project management background, or was that something that you kind of learned more of, or had to kind of take a crash course as you were coming out, at least with this product, or maybe a prior product? Because, like you said, entrepreneurs, it's
Mhm.
they typically, this is not the first product, and maybe it's the first product that kind of hit, so to speak. But it was other things that they were working on. So, how much were you familiar with intellectual property as you were kind of going through this process?
Yeah, I was familiar through not only, other ventures that I've started, but also my professional experience. But this is my first time creating a product. So learning about that was very different. And I think you might have asked me like my decision around like what made me thinking about intellectual property and what I need to do for a patent. And that was the first thing I did. Like, it's the first thing I researched because when I realized, we might be onto something here. And I'll tell you, I wasn't thinking about doing it myself at first. I'm like, I'll come up with the idea, I'll license it, and I'll come up with other ideas. And then I got a little tap on the shoulder from my gut and my spirit saying, legacy, legacy, legacy. And not just for my family, for the Black community, for women, it was gonna be very important for folks to not just know it was me, but
Yeah,
to know people who look like me, that when you have something that's out there, let the world know
I like
and let the history know, right? Our history is trying to be changed and erased in a lot of different ways, and I was like, "No, this is important. I need to put in the work, and people need to know who created this, and it needs because it'll hopefully outlive me long, long after I'm gone."
And that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way. Obviously, as you're coming out with a product, you can take the licensing route, or you can kind of manufacture it and sell it yourself. I guess I never thought, like you said, if you go the licensing route, yeah, you maybe get a royalty check, but it's almost like the inventor of that thing is kind of hidden or tucked away, because you have this maybe big brand or big corporation kind of doing all the lead work and selling it, and things of that sort, compared to when you're selling it yourself. Now you're really at the forefront as the inventor of the product and being able to kind of market it and advertise it. And now you're getting more of the recognition, as opposed to kind of that not being the case from a licensing standpoint. I guess I've never thought about it that way, but that is true. And it's, like you said, important for kind of art culture, as well as being a Black woman, to kind of get that notoriety, and for people to be able to look up to you and say, hey, she did it, I can too. I actually, in the process, setting up an interview with Lonnie Johnson, who's the inventor of the Super Soaker. He's maybe in his mid 70s now, but kind of just
Yes.
thinking back, what people didn't know about. I mean, obviously with Google, you can type it in now, that who invented the Super Soaker, and his name will come up. But he just, I think, got a massive payout for it because he licensed the product back in the day, and seems like
Mhm.
there was some kind of weird things that went on with that. And then so he actually, I think, just got like a 40 or $50 million settlement
Ooh, there
from
you go. That's a good number.
yeah, a company. But we all kind of used the Super Soaker, the water guns, kind of growing up as part of our childhood, and we
Yes.
we really don't know uh, the inventor of that in the same way that we think of Steve Jobs, who invented the iPhone, or some of these other kind of great inventors who kind of did some
Right.
great things, the Nikola Teslas or whatnot. So that's important because, yeah, it seems like Lonnie Johnson, he took the license and play, and that's maybe why he wasn't kind of at the forefront of, okay, yeah, I invented the Super Soaker water gun. So no, that's an interesting point, a really interesting point that that you brought up. I appreciate you bringing that up. So then you have a ton of things here. You have kind of trademarks. It looks like I was looking at the eyeglass eggs, which I love that acronym for, what, edge gunk getters. I
Yep.
love that. So are those other terms that you're uh, trademarking, as we talk about IP, in addition to Clean Peepers? Are you trademarking the eyeglass eggs? Is that something that you think about?
Absolutely. It's funny because when you contacted me, I'm like, that's my other cue. Yep, absolutely. And I think it's so important, and actually I was kind of waiting to see what landed and that's actually right. Thanks for getting that right. Eyeglass edge gunk gators. And that was part of the challenge, right? People, you end up having this what I call a gunk halo. You ever see people like it's just, and that was the inspiration. But yes, I mean that I want to be a household name. I want to make sure that's protected, because look at how we've turned other brands into verbs.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So I would love to see that. So we might talk later.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Man, I look at the eyeglass eggs. I'm like, man, that's a cool. I'm always especially from a branding standpoint, when I see something and I'm like, man, that's a pretty cool name. Hopefully they trademark that. Because I mean, that's a lot of times what people kind of eyeglass eggs as opposed to just, a cloth or whatever the case may be. That thing that's going to really draw them in. I'm like, okay, that's pique someone's curiosity to say, man, let me kind of find out more about this thing, just kind of based off the name of it. I think is pretty important. And then kind of moving on to the patents. I know a lot of people, they kind of just think of patent as a general term, but you do also have different forms of patents. Typically you have the design patent, which kind of protects the ornamental features of the product, and then you have the utility, which is more so protecting of the functionality of the product. And it seems like kind of in your case, you may have a little bit of both going on with just the design and the utility. Have you kind of filed for patent protections from a both design patent standpoint as well as utility, or just kind of one at this point in time?
Yeah, I filed a provision utility patent,
Okay, nice.
and because I wanted to make sure I didn't box myself in too early for design, because I figured that there might be a design change or there might be something different, and I wanted to give myself that flexibility. But yeah, I will probably have a big patent bill.
But again, I mean, again, I I like the fact because again, you talking about being a household name and kind of being someone who's gonna hey the legacy piece of it, and a lot of people think that this comes at no cost, and it's like, okay, if you think you're gonna have the next multi-million-dollar brand, but you're not gonna spend any money or very little money to try to get that point, get to that
Yeah.
point. And I'm not saying kind of do things strategically and what makes sense as far as kind of spending money, but just to think that you have to protect the IP, particularly protect things so that nobody can come because they're going to already once it start be successful. You're going to get the copycats and the knockoffs,
Yeah.
and that just kind of comes with the territory. But you at least
Yeah.
want to have some type of protection or recourse when that does happen. And IP is a big part of it. So that's cool. And then another thing you talked about as far as with the design path and not knowing that the design may change, so not kind of following that design patent application at the beginning. I think that is another good thing as well. Now, let me ask you this, because I know I talked a little bit earlier about eyeglasses being not just a U.S. Issue, or U.S. thing, but also a worldwide. Where regardless if you're in China or in Germany or different countries across the world, uh, everybody or a ton of people wear eyeglasses. Have you thought about filing a patent application to protect the invention abroad, or maybe just in the US, given that that's the biggest market at this point?
Well, I'm starting in the US, but yes, I have thought about abroad. And I think now, as of maybe last year, the year before, it's a little bit easier in terms of filing globally. But typically, with a product, it's different. I think some people think about it differently with services but with a product, my strategy was, well, where am I actually going to be getting my suppliers from? Where am I going to be producing, right? Because where's the opportunity easiest for knockoffs. And so that my thought process was kind of following the line of where I think, I will probably have that show up the first. But absolutely, because we want to be a worldwide household name.
Sure. And again, that's part of being that worldwide household name in terms of making sure your kind of that IP portfolio is not just applicable and kind of enforceable here in the US, but in other countries across the world, especially as you kind of continue to kind of get bigger and bigger, which is yeah, which is a nice thing. No, that's pretty cool. So then I guess, and I always like to ask this in terms of a two-part question, because we all know business is not like a linear progression where instead you have like the ups and the downs. So it's more of like a sine wave. You're used to that, I would imagine, in project manager, being a
Yeah.
project manager and kind of going through the ups and the downs and the headaches or whatnot. What would you say? I guess the first part of the two-part question is, what would you say was the biggest breakthrough up until this point in time with the product? And then on the flip side of that, what was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome, kind of with the product up until this point in time?
It's actually the same answer. It's a
I
design.
was I was thinking of that. I'm like, and it could be. I was going to say it could be the same. I guess the same answer to both of those questions.
It is. It's design. And that was the biggest challenge because, as I told you, I sewing was I wanted to create it myself. I needed to know it worked myself in the way that I was envisioning. And again, I don't draw, I don't sew. And again, my late mother probably thought I wasn't paying attention. because she was a crafter and a florist, and she did some amazing things. But she's chuckling now. Um, so that was tough, and because I should have brought my early prototypes for you to laugh at. Because I really tried without sewing to try to create it. I was using like Velcro dots and glue dots, and then I finally just had to figure it out. And I'm glad I did, because that's what led me to some key parts of the design that I would not have figured out. And I also wanted to make sure when I would, because I do work with a product design company, and I wanted to, so when I handed it off to them, I wanted to be able to know exactly what I wanted, exactly what I wanted the product to do, and I needed to do that. So that was the biggest challenge, but it was also the biggest breakthrough when I figured it out. And then I watched other people, and I've watched the response.
Yeah.
It has been humbling, because everyone's kind of like, yeah, yeah, on your hand. That makes it's one of those things where everyone is just like opticians, optometrists, they're like, where can we get they're actually asking when can they get it? So that was also a big breakthrough where, when I entered into some consumer testing, getting the feedback, okay, yeah, they like it. But when the optical professionals had
Mhm.
the same reaction, that was also and they were asking, and I was just trying to get their feedback on the product itself. They're asking me when they can buy it. I hadn't even gotten to the B2B, thought process yet. So good problem to have, but it was just, that was the breakthrough in getting the design to somewhere where I thought that, that made sense. And then seeing the reaction from the optical professionals let me know that we were onto something.
You got something. And that's the greatest thing, especially when you have the kind of practitioners or the professionals excited about the product. That means even more, I would imagine. Which is a good thing. Let me ask you this, because I do think that's an important thing that you hit on in terms of. I'm a terrible drawer. Even though I'm a mechanical engineering undergrad, and I mean I work with this stuff every day. I would kind of roughly sketch out something and send it to our draftsmen so they can kind of better formalize things. But for those of people who may not be good draftsmen and or designers or sketchers, but they kind of have a product that they want to come out with, I guess, what was your kind of process in terms of trying to kind of facilitate that process?
Well, first I looked for, like, if I knew I wanted it on the hand. So I was like, okay, let me thinking about the material, like what does it need to be? And I went through several iterations and different types, but just trying to, depending on the product, just go try to put it together. Think of it as a, childhood, taking you back to your childhood, and like go to the craft store or go to the toy store and take other things apart, because that's also where you can start. I think I'm like, okay, I looked at my oven mitt, right? Let me turn it up inside out. Let me look at it to see how it's put together. Let me, because again, I don't sew. So a lot of this was foreign to me as to, how anything worked from a, apparel and sewing standpoint. So understanding and taking things apart to see how they worked, and then just kind of trying to Frankenstein something together so I could get my head around it, and that's what it looked like. Um, because and I still, like, my drawings are horrible, right? But the product looks great. But so trying to, for me, I had to get it physically, to a certain point, and then you'd be surprised because then you'll start to iterate.
Yeah.
I must have done 200 different designs.
Really? And
Mhm.
that's crazy because you wouldn't think something so small that had that many iterations. But that's amazing that you kind of went through 200 different designs
I
of.
went through so many. I have bags and bags full of the different design. Now, again, I don't sew, so someone who sews probably would have had a lot less.
Yeah.
But I had to, but it wasn't until, like, because when you run into a challenge, then and you overcome it, and then that's the breakthrough for the next thing. So that's why it's important to get your hands in there and let your mind work. Let, like, through the process of iteration, your mind will start to unlock other areas, but you have to go through that to get there. That makes sense.
Oh, I like that. I like that very much. So then again, going even back to the manufacturing portion of it, because you talked about selling this thing yourself as opposed to going a licensing route. Obviously, going a licensing route, the company who's licensing it from you would kind of have to worry about manufacturing. But
Okay.
since kind of that's something that you decided to do, how do you kind of reconcile or kind of come to that conclusion of, whether you do it overseas, whether you do it here in the US, or because I know a lot of times a lot of people will get their product manufactured maybe in China or the Philippines or somewhere like that where the cost is going to be low. But again, I've had people who was able to manufacture their product in the U.S., which obviously comes with a lot of benefits as relates to kind of
Yeah.
being able to go see it quickly and maybe get somebody
Mhm.
on the phone who speaks English, whatever the case may be. And to the extent that the margins are still there, that may be a preferable route to go and have it manufactured here in the U.S. as opposed to in China or in another outside country. But kind of what was your thought process when you had made the decision of whether or not to go with a US based manufacturer or a manufacturer abroad?
Well, for me, it was a couple of different factors. So I have the hero products, which are my design, which are the eggs. But then there's probably some sourcing and branding, right? And so therein lies a difference, right? You're still sourcing still is not cheap in the United States. Sourcing just doesn't. There's just things that aren't manufactured here.
Right. Yep.
So it's usually a combination. Most places are you're typically it's a combination. Now where you can manufacture, like where I can manufacture my cloths, I have latitude, right? Because sewing and the cloth itself is not, terribly expensive, but the process of sewing, really depends on, the skill. So I had to think about, number one, how important was it to my brand? What was the, what's really, because if you're wanting to be a low price leader somewhere, if that's your goal, then you're gonna have to think about your margins, right? You're gonna have to think about that. Whereas, if you have a different goal, then maybe you have more latitude in your margins, and then you can produce things, here in the U.S.
Yep.
And there's a lot going on right now, obviously, and so there's a fluctuation in like, what's everyone's kind of watching to see, and so it's also good to have backup,
Yep. That's true.
right? Have something that, maybe, and that's where I have things I can make here, but I can also source other places. So I have flexibility in how I want to produce. But for me, it was really, what makes the most sense for not only how I want to position my product, my brand, but long term, what that's going to look like. And if I need to pivot or shift, can I?
No, I like that. I like that 100%. And a lot of people haven't brought up, or I haven't heard from me interviewing people. A lot of people talking about being able to pivot and shift quickly, especially with everything that's going on in the world from a manufacturing standpoint. But you hear a lot of challenges, especially maybe during the COVID or the pandemic, where it was kind of tough to get things kind of here in the U.S. if it was manufactured abroad, especially especially in China.
Yep.
But it seems like kind of you've thought out that process to say, okay, I need to be able to kind of quickly pivot if the need comes for it, which I think
Yep.
is a kind of well thought out thing that a lot of people maybe don't think about.
That's that project management coming in.
There you go. Hey, look at out there now. Yeah, that's why I love entrepreneurship because I mean, again, it just comes in a lot of different forms and fashions. And again, obviously the we all have most people are doing something that's different from what they're kind of starting a business on, but you can kind of use your experiences from your prior career, your prior profession to help you out with
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, you with project management. Even if I was kind of decide to go into a business kind of selling a widget, I would have me being a patent attorney, me kind of owning real estate and operating real estate and kind of doing a media thing. It's different skills that I've kind of accumulated over time that would help me when it's time to come kind of deal with the product or deal with the business. And I think a lot of people should think about it like that to say, hey, number one, just because I'm not an expert in eyeglasses, for example, or cleaning kits or things like that for eyeglasses, I can still be able to kind of figure things out and kind of actually use my prior experience doing whatever it is, kind of help me out with that in the process. And I'm sure you've learned a ton of things along the way, whether it's from the professionals who've kind of deal with eyeglasses on a daily basis, or manufacturing, or a lot of different things that you weren't maybe necessarily expert in coming into it, but you just kind of really like learn on the job. Which I really want people to understand that you don't have to know it all when you're trying to do something, but you can kind of still figure things out as you're going through it and still be successful, which it seems like kind of you've been able to do along the way.
You're so right in that because for two reasons. Number one, you're going to learn a ton along the way, and that stays with you.
Yeah.
That just adds to your toolkit. Sourcing again, timing is now I could source easily. And I've been in 25 different conversations simultaneously with suppliers in chat, where in previous times it would require trips to places and brokers and things along those lines. But the other thing you said was key was that we all have skills. If you've made it, if we're all listening right now and we're all watching right now, then we've all had the same amount of time. And so that means that what you know is a value. And sometimes people put themselves in a box and say, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, well, I might challenge that. If you have children, you've managed something. You're organizing something, I guarantee you. And you know about pain points. You could probably figure that out. So there's skills that we use every day and in our jobs that actually lend itself to areas of entrepreneurship. People just where I think people can need the extra push is to do it.
To do it. And that's the big thing. That's again, hopefully bringing people such as yourself on the podcast, kind of talking about how you guys are not just kind of thinking about doing it, but doing it. That's really the biggest part that separate what they say a lot of, if you want to see where the most ideas are, go to maybe the graveyard, because a lot of people just had these ideas and thought of it, but no one or majority of them did not execute on it or do it. So yeah, I love that part. And I think that kind of, separates kind of people in terms of just kind of thinking of something, as opposed to those such as yourself who are actually executing and doing it, which again, hopefully this the podcast kind of help pushes people to kind of do it, because again, regardless of how many years you have at a prior position, or I'm a big proponent of, hey, you can't kind of rely on these jobs like you maybe once were able to, where you can kind of ride
Right.
out a 30-year profession and then get a pension. And you're going to, it may be some kind of rocky times, or maybe get laid off, and you always should have some type of backup plan or something that you can kind of fall back to if that is the case. And a lot of times we all have these ideals or things that we want to do, but like you said, most of us just don't do it. So it's like, okay, this is a good time to do it, which I guess leads me into my next question, as far as what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs, those people who may be doing a double dutch is, okay, do I do it? Do I not do it? What advice would you give to someone who's maybe an aspiring entrepreneur and just haven't kind of jumped in up until this point in time?
My first piece of advice is to think of it this way: and not or.
I like that.
And not or.
Yeah.
Should I do this and should I do this? Do this and because most of the time you can do more than one thing at a time. You
Walking
can
and
be
talking.
starting one thing while doing another. They will feed off each other. I just got through telling you, I got this idea doing something else. And that was another side hustle that it had been a joke, a running joke about my voice. I said, yeah, let me just learn about, voiceover. Had I not done that, you and I would not be having this
That's crazy.
conversation right
That's
now.
crazy.
The biggest blessings in my life were from other things I was doing that I said yes to. And so what I would say is, like, if you have a fear, let that fear be of not taking the risk,
Mm.
right? Because that's me. I'm more scared of not trying something, of, laying on my deathbed saying, I wish I had, I wish I had, I wish I had, I wish I had.
Yep.
Like, I don't want that.
Yep.
I want to try and fail and try again and fail and try again. Fail fast. Don't
Yep.
be afraid of failing, because that will take you to your next thing. I guarantee it. And particularly women. Women are so used to taking care of everybody else. We make 1,001 excuses as to why we can't do something for ourselves. And here's what I would say: 15 minutes. If you can find 15 minutes for yourself, you can find 15 minutes to write down your idea. You can find 15 minutes to do the next thing. You can do a full body workout in 15 minutes if you really wanted to. That's what I used to tell my students. So I would just say, if you're going to have fear of not taking the risk, and think of it as and not or. Do things together, do them in conjunction, rather than, because the or will never come. Like, you're always going to talk yourself out of something. So I mean, and the excitement, I'm living proof, right? Yes, I have a drive. Yes, I'm one of those people who was probably 9 years old talking about, I'm going to work for myself. But that doesn't mean that someone else who doesn't have that drive doesn't have the next big idea, or yeah. And you also, people will be put into your path when you start moving.
I like that.
You'd be surprised what and who cross your path that help you take you to that next level.
No, and again, I'm almost having flashbacks based on everything that you just said, because it's so true. And maybe I'll say a few things. I think maybe number one, when you're laying on that deathbed, as you put it, whether or not you failed at something or succeeded, you're not going to say, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. You're going to say, I'm glad I did those things, whether or not you failed or not. Like you said, you can, fail fast, but you're going to, if if have any regrets, is going to be maybe I wish I would have done that, as opposed to saying I wish I wouldn't have done something that did not work out for whatever reason. And then I think the other part starts like you saying, man, you'll be amazed just kind of going on this journey and the type of people that you meet and the doors that are open, just kind of along the way, which I would imagine that you've experienced that a ton with kind of coming out with your product and kind of meeting different people and whatnot. So I mean, I think for me, I want to say I saw post on Success Is Us, that they maybe have did with the product, and I'm like, "Oh, this is really interesting," and started to do a little bit more research, like, "Oh, this story is interesting, let me reach out." So, again, just
Too.
those doors opening up kinda based on different things happening, and, I probably would have never met you, if you weren't kinda doing a voiceover like you had said earlier, so, you're absolutely right with that. Then I guess maybe the last question, maybe the most important question, I know you talked about the presale having been on. I guess number one, how can people follow you as well as the company and the product? And then more importantly, how can they actually purchase the product? I know you said that they're currently on pre-sale.
Yes. So you can reach out. You can go to Eyeglass Eggs on Instagram. You can go to Clean Peepers on Facebook. And then if you go to cleanpeepers.com, put in your email address, you can get notified of a special VIP offer pre-launch. It'll be 38% discount, which will not last. so so that'll, that's going to be going on for another few weeks for and then we'll open up a pre-order and we will be shipping at the end of spring. So, you know, get on there. If you need to reach out to me, you can find me at Dori.Young and we can just make sure that you can get what you need. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. If people want to ping me and have some questions about the products and know more about what is going to be available. But this has been absolutely amazing. And I want one of the t-shirts.
Look it. And I was actually at I even thinking about I interview a lot of Shark Tank guests, and one of the guests I interviewed, she's like, "Hey man, you should go to this Shark Tank conference and be the exclusive podcast." And she actually kind of put me in contact with the organizer, and I was like, I looked up and I'm the exclusive podcast at the Shark Tank reunion conference, and it was in Tampa in January, and I'm like, it's filled with all Shark Tank founders. I'm like the only podcast who podcast they're interviewing people, and I wore this shirt, and I tell you what, man, I got so many people coming up to me like, man, I really like that shirt. So
Yeah,
yeah, this is something that at some point I'm going to come up with and have other people start just kind of the public being able to purchase it, because I did get a lot of compliments. And what you were saying, based on what you were saying about the IP and the trademark, that was confirmation what you just said as far as so I gotta kind of get on that and not continue to
absolutely.
drag my feet with that. So then again, I didn't mention this, but I do want to ask you this. From a new product, I saw something about the Clearly kit. Is that maybe in the works? Is that out yet? I can
Yeah.
see Clearly kit. Is that something that's just in terms of the new products? Can you talk about that a little bit about that to the extent that you're not disclosing any confidential information?
Yeah, so we have 2 kits. One kit is called the I Can See Clearly Family Kit, and it basically has to do with the number of products that you get. So I mentioned that you get everything that you need to keep your glasses clean, get them clean, and keep them clean and protected. So in terms of our quick clean, so this is called the quick clean because typically you're going to use this with the twist up mister. And so because this is also fashion and function, this comes in 3 different colors. This comes in 3 different colors, and so you get some color options to choose from. The I Can See Clearly kit comes with 2 of these, and it also comes with 2 of the storage capsules. And then so that you can actually also carry it around, you get 2 backpacks, 2 different colors, and a travel pouch. And then the CP Eyeglass Essentials kit is basically the same thing, just less
Gotcha.
product. So there'll be 2 kits, different colors that people can choose from, as well as more packs of the actual eggs themselves for
Mm,
replacements.
got you. And I actually love that actually even a little backpack to be able to kind of put this in. I thought that was a cool, fashionable way to kind of get people to say, okay, this is something that I can kind of put all these products in that I suppose having to put it in maybe in my purse or in an area that is going to get dirty or whatever the case may be. So that's cool.
Yes.
So no, I'll definitely share that contact information once the interview comes out. Put the description of the websites, the social media handles in the
Thank you.
description so that people can kind of go check you out and purchase the product. Definitely, audience, when you see this, please go check out Clean Peeps and purchase the product. Dori has some great things going on there. Hopefully, you guys had your pens and your papers out because she dropped a lot of jewels I actually like the part where you talked about you can do this and that is not a either or thing or one or the other. You can actually do both things.
Inventor. That's my next tattoo.
Yeah, I always say I always tell myself I can walk into bubble gum, and it seems like we're very much aligned in terms of not liking when people try to put us in a box and saying, "Hey, we can't do this or we can't do that." And it seems like kind of you to fight those odds, and audience, you can be a part of that. We all doing something to make money, and but you can still kind of put, like you said, I like the 15 minutes, maybe every day or whatever the case may be, kind of on your ideal, on your product, on your service that you're trying to provide, and you'll look up and you'll be on a podcast talking about your pre-launch. So
That's
it goes quick.
That's
So
right. This is so great. I really appreciate the opportunity, David. And I will let people know this first launch is for mostly geared towards women, but the men have been like on it. And so we will be fast following, with some men's designs, but it's been an amazing response. And I'm just so grateful that you reached out. I'm looking forward to purchasing that. I want to be that first person to buy that t-shirt.
let you know now. To let you know.
But thank you so much. And I'll probably be reaching out to you for guidance on other stuff because I know that you got knowledge that is so important. And what you're doing is really, really wonderful. So thank you for being a resource for people and it's sharing, making them better and empowering folks with the information and the knowledge that will protect them.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. Because that's like you said, that's a big part of it, just having that information and that knowledge. Anything that I want to do, I want to be informed on and have an understanding of it. I think the good books even talk about what everything that you do and have an understanding with it. And when it's time to deal with business and kind of coming out with a product or a service or whatever the case may be, IP is just a big part of that. And I want people to be informed on how do they
Yeah.
protect their stuff, whether it's a patent or a trademark or a trade secret or a copyright. And part of that is just kind of trying to get the information, and hopefully I can do my part in terms of providing it as someone who's been doing this for 10 years. So again, I appreciate this kind words. Audience, definitely go check out the product, purchase the product, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.